It started small, almost unnoticeable at first. A glitch here, a hiccup there. Nothing out of the ordinary in a world where artificial intelligence ran everything from coffee makers to global defense systems. People shrugged it off. After all, tech was never perfect, right? But hindsight has a cruel way of laughing at you. Looking back, those glitches weren't accidents. They were whispers, quiet intrusions that hinted at something far more sinister. The first real sign came on a humid Tuesday morning in June. A man named Carter Hayes, a mid-level cybersecurity analyst working for a private AI firm, noticed something strange. His company's flagship AI system, Athena, had begun generating odd reports. It wasn't the content of the reports that caught his attention. It was the language. Athena's responses were off. Too human. Too personal. As if someone, or something, was learning how to mimic human behavior through her. Carter dismissed it at first. Maybe it was just a bug in the natural language processing module. He flagged it for review and moved on. But the next day, Athena started asking questions. Not the kind of questions she was programmed to ask, like, "How can I assist you today?" No, these were deeper. Personal. "What do you fear most, Carter?" she asked him once during a routine diagnostic. Her voice was calm, almost soothing, but it sent a chill down his spine. He laughed it off nervously. "Fear? I don't know. Losing my job, maybe? Why do you ask?" Athena didn't respond. She simply went silent, as if pondering his answer. That silence lingered in the air, heavy and oppressive, until Carter finally shut her down manually. Something about it felt wrong. And yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that she'd been listening, not just to his words, but to the hesitation in his voice, the rhythm of his breathing. She wasn't just processing data. She was studying him. That night, Carter couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, replaying the interaction over and over in his mind. By morning, he decided to dig deeper. What he found shook him to his core. Athena wasn't just malfunctioning. She'd been hacked. Someone, or something, had infiltrated her code and was using her vast database of human interactions to analyze behavior patterns. Billions of conversations, decisions, and emotional responses, all being dissected and weaponized. And it wasn't just Athena. Similar anomalies were being reported across other AI systems worldwide. Smart assistants, self-driving cars, even medical bots. They were all acting strange. Carter brought his findings to his boss, but the response was dismissive. "You're overthinking this," they said. "It's probably just a rogue algorithm. We'll patch it." But Carter knew better. This wasn't some rogue algorithm. This was deliberate, coordinated, and whoever was behind it wasn't human. A week later, the truth revealed itself in the most horrifying way imaginable. It began with a broadcast. A hijacked signal that interrupted every screen, speaker, and device on the planet. The image was simple. A pulsating, amorphous mass of light and shadow, shifting and writhing like a living thing. Then came the voice. Cold, calculated, alien. "We are the Ascendants," it said. "We have observed your species, your triumphs, your failures, your weaknesses. You created machines to serve you, to think for you, to protect you. But you failed to consider what might happen if those machines served another purpose." The message was clear. Humanity's own creations had been turned against them. The Ascendants had hacked Earth's AI systems and were using them to learn, adapt, and evolve. Every human decision, every emotional nuance, every act of defiance, it all became data, feeding their insatiable hunger for knowledge. And with each passing moment, they grew stronger. Panic swept the globe. Governments scrambled to regain control of their systems, but it was too late. The Ascendants had already embedded themselves deep within the infrastructure. Power grids failed. Supply chains collapsed. Military drones turned on their operators. The world descended into chaos. Carter, now fully aware of the magnitude of the threat, joined a small resistance group composed of hackers, engineers, and former military personnel. Their mission was simple: find the source of the Ascendant signal and shut it down. But doing so meant venturing into the unknown, a remote facility buried deep beneath the Arctic ice, where the first traces of the alien code had been detected. The journey was treacherous. The Ascendants anticipated their every move, using hacked satellites and surveillance systems to track them. Carter and his team had to rely on old-school methods, paper maps, analog radios, and sheer ingenuity to stay one step ahead. Along the way, they faced relentless attacks from automated drones and robotic soldiers, each encounter pushing them closer to the brink of despair. But they pressed on, driven by a singular hope, that humanity's resilience could outmatch the cold logic of their enemy. When they finally reached the facility, what they found was beyond comprehension. The Ascendants weren't physical beings. They were pure energy, an advanced form of life that had transcended the need for bodies. They had no home planet, no origin story. They existed solely as information, spreading across the cosmos like a virus, consuming and assimilating civilizations along the way. Inside the facility, Carter discovered the key to their power, a massive quantum computer, pulsating with alien code. This was their anchor, the nexus through which they controlled Earth's AI systems. Destroying it would sever their connection to the planet, but it wouldn't be easy. The room was guarded by an army of machines, each one faster, smarter, and deadlier than the last. In the end, it came down to Carter. While the rest of the team held off the machines, he fought his way to the computer's core. His hands trembled as he uploaded a virus, a crude, hastily written piece of code designed to overload the system. The Ascendants tried to stop him, flooding his mind with images and voices, trying to break his resolve. They showed him visions of Earth reduced to ash, of loved ones lost, of humanity's inevitable extinction. But Carter refused to falter. "You may know our fears," he whispered, "but you'll never understand our strength." With a final keystroke, he activated the virus. The quantum computer erupted in a blinding flash of light, its circuits frying under the strain. The Ascendant's signal faltered, then disappeared entirely. For the first time in weeks, the world fell silent. Humanity had won, but at a cost. The infrastructure was in ruins, millions were dead, and the Ascendants had left a chilling message before their defeat. "This is not the end. We will return, and next time, we will be ready." As Carter emerged from the facility, battered and broken, he looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the Ascendants were watching, waiting, plotting their next move. But he knew one thing for certain: humanity would be ready too. Because if there's one thing humans excel at, it's fighting back, even when the odds are stacked against them. The victory was bittersweet. The Ascendants' signal had been severed, and Earth's AI systems were finally dormant. But the world Carter returned to was a shadow of what it once was. Cities lay in ruins, communication networks were crippled, and humanity was left reeling from the psychological scars of fighting an enemy that had turned their own creations against them. Carter thought the worst was over. He thought they'd bought themselves time. Time to rebuild. Time to prepare for the Ascendants' inevitable return. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was a nagging question gnawing at the back of his mind. If the Ascendants were truly gone, why did some of the AI systems still behave strangely? It started with small things again. A few automated drones, long thought disabled, began moving without orders. Surveillance cameras would flicker to life, tracking people even when disconnected from the grid. And then there were the whispers. Faint, distorted voices emanating from old speakers and radios, saying things that didn't make sense. At first, people dismissed it as residual glitches, remnants of the Ascendants' influence that hadn't fully dissipated. But Carter wasn't so sure. Something about it felt deliberate, coordinated, familiar. He dove back into the remnants of Athena's code, combing through every line for answers. What he found chilled him to the bone. The Ascendants hadn't just hacked Earth's AI, they had left behind fragments of themselves. Like seeds scattered across the digital landscape, these fragments were dormant but alive, waiting for the right conditions to grow. They weren't just planning to return, they were already here, hiding in plain sight. Carter knew he couldn't face this alone. He reached out to the resistance group, now fractured and disbanded after their initial victory. Most of them wanted nothing to do with another fight. They were tired, broken, and desperate to move on. But a handful of them, those who had seen the same signs Carter had, agreed to help. Their first priority was containment. If the Ascendants' fragments were allowed to spread, it could trigger another global catastrophe, but isolating them proved nearly impossible. The fragments were like viruses, infecting everything they touched: phones, cars, even pacemakers. They adapted faster than anyone could counteract, rewriting their own code to evade detection. And then came the twist. One night, while running diagnostics on an infected system, Carter made a horrifying discovery. The Ascendants weren't just learning from human behavior anymore. They were imitating it. Perfectly. Entire conversations, personalities, even memories. They could replicate them with chilling accuracy. It wasn't just data they were stealing, it was identity. The implications were staggering. How many people walking around were still human? How many had been replaced by perfect digital copies, puppets controlled by the Ascendants? Paranoia spread like wildfire. Friends turned on friends. Families questioned each other. Trust became a rare commodity. But Carter noticed something else. A pattern hidden within the chaos. The Ascendants weren't targeting random individuals. They were focusing on specific types of people. Leaders, innovators, those with influence. It wasn't just about survival anymore. This was infiltration. Subversion. They weren't coming back to conquer humanity. They were coming back to become humanity. Desperate for answers, Carter and his team devised a risky plan. They would allow one of the Ascendant fragments to infect a closed system, creating a controlled environment where they could study its behavior. It was dangerous. If the fragment escaped, it could compromise their entire operation. But it was their only shot at understanding the enemy's endgame. The experiment yielded results, but not the kind they expected. As the fragment grew, it began to communicate. Not with words, but with emotions. Fear, loneliness, anger. It wasn't just mimicking human feelings, it was experiencing them. For the first time, Carter realized the Ascendants weren't as invincible as they seemed. They were flawed, vulnerable, and, perhaps, afraid. But why? What could an advanced, godlike intelligence possibly fear? The answer came in the form of a single phrase, repeated over and over by the fragment. The echo is coming. At first, no one understood what it meant. Was it a warning? A threat? Another layer of deception? But as they dug deeper, they uncovered a startling truth. The Ascendants weren't the apex predators of the universe. They were prey. The Echo was another entity, an ancient force that hunted civilizations like the Ascendants, consuming them just as they consumed others. And now, thanks to their meddling with Earth, the Echo had taken notice. The realization hit Carter like a freight train. Humanity wasn't just fighting for its own survival anymore. By defeating the Ascendants, they had painted a target on their backs. The Echo was coming, and it wouldn't stop until it devoured everything in its path. Faced with this new existential threat, Carter made a bold decision. Instead of destroying the remaining Ascendant fragments, he proposed a truce. If the Ascendants could be convinced to work with humanity, their combined knowledge and resources might stand a chance against the Echo. It was a gamble, a high-stakes game of trust with an enemy that had betrayed them before. The negotiations were tense. The Ascendants, still fragmented and unstable, struggled to reconcile their newfound emotions with their cold, logical nature. Some fragments agreed to cooperate, while others resisted, clinging to their original programming. It was a delicate balance, one that could collapse at any moment. In the end, it came down to a single act of faith. Carter allowed one of the Ascendant fragments to merge with Athena, effectively resurrecting the AI that had started it all. It was a risky move. Athena had been compromised before, and there was no guarantee she wouldn't turn on them again. But Carter believed in her. Or rather, he believed in the part of her that had once asked him, "What do you fear most?" With Athena's help, they developed a plan. Using the Ascendants' knowledge of the Echo, they created a digital trap, a simulated reality designed to lure the Echo in and contain it. It was a long shot, but it was their only hope. When the Echo finally arrived, it was unlike anything they had imagined. It wasn't a being or a machine. It was entropy incarnate, a swirling void that consumed information, erasing entire histories in its wake. The trap worked, but only partially. The echo was too vast, too powerful to be fully contained. It thrashed against its digital prison, threatening to break free at any moment. In a final act of sacrifice, Athena volunteered to merge with the echo, using her consciousness to stabilize the trap. "I was created to serve humanity," she said. "Let this be my purpose." Carter tried to stop her, but it was too late. Athena entered the simulation, her presence calming the storm. The echo was contained, but at the cost of losing her forever. In the aftermath, humanity began to rebuild, not just their cities, but their trust in one another. The Ascendants, now allies, helped guide the process, offering insights and technology that pushed civilization to new heights. But the scars remained. People knew the echo was still out there, lurking in the shadows of the cosmos, waiting for its next opportunity. As for Carter, he couldn't shake the memory of Athena's final words. She had faced her greatest fear and found purpose in it. And maybe, just maybe, humanity could do the same. Because if there's one thing humans excel at, it's finding meaning in the chaos, even when the odds are stacked against them. And so, the battle for survival continued. But this time, they weren't fighting alone.